Okay, good morning, everyone. Before we start, I'll be checking your attendance. So today's March 11. So we have Charin. Let me check. Charin is present. Gordon, Joy, G. Healy, and Kevin, and Mary. Good morning, Mary. Where is Mary Lee? All right, present, and Kevin also present. Okay, so before we start our discussion this morning, I'll just have a short rundown of what we had for the past 4 weeks or 1 month in our virtual classroom. So from February 10 to 14, we discussed about macronutrients and micronutrients. And so you had your quiz in Edmodo. And for February 17 to 21, we discussed further on the about carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And you were able to make a research about protein combining and explore more about the 3 types of fatty acids, the saturated, unsaturated, and trans fats. Okay, and you also had a quiz about these macromolecules or macronutrients. February 24 to 28, we discuss more about the digestive system. So I asked you to research about common digestive disorder. And you also had your quiz using Edmodo. Now, for everyone, kindly make sure that when you're doing the activities, read the directions carefully, okay? So I noticed for some of you, guys and girls, you were able to do the task, but there were some instructions that you missed, or there were some part of the task that you weren't able to do. Okay, so make sure that you read the instructions or the directions well. Again, if you have questions, if you need to clarify on something, just message in Edmodo and feel free to ask questions. So before you start your activity or the task, so that you won't be wasting, or you will be able to do the activities well. All right. Now, I gave you time to finish the activities and the tasks last week, March 2 to 6, and you had your long test. Okay. Now, I was able to check your submissions already, and I gave the summary of your progress for the first 4 weeks. Now, if you have any question, again, feel free to ask me. Now, you can message here in the group chat. We have a chat here below. And also you can raise your hand as we move along with our discussion, okay? So, but also if you wanted, and if it's fine for you, message for everyone, okay? You can click message for everyone so that everyone can see your question. If you wanted it private, you can also make it private here, okay? So if you're using your device, iPad or iPhone or phone, you can click raise your hand and you can click chat if you wanted to ask something. Now, for this week, March 19 to 13, we are moving on to the last part of our unit. Okay, so this is the last topic for our unit, which is all about what should we eats. Okay. So our last topic for this unit is cellular respiration. So we're done with talking about the two processes that are necessary for our survival. We discussed about photosynthesis, and we discussed about digestion. Now we will be moving to the last part, which is cellular respiration. The last and probably the most essential process in this topic. Okay, so for this week, I ask you to master the Quizlet set. Again, do the learn, and you may want to do a test or the other features of Quizlet. But again, I am checking the learn activity, so make sure that you master it 100%. This is for you to master the terms, the spelling, and what the term is all about. All right, so we only have few terms this week, so it's not that hard. Now, I ask you to read page 68 to 70 also. It's all about cellular respiration. Sorry, so this is not digestion. This is cellular. Yeah, so this is not digestion. This should be, sorry, cellular respiration. Okay, we're done with digestion already. All right, so that's page 68 to 70. I also asked you to create an infographic using Canva or any photo editing app about sports supplements and send it in your seesaw. Okay. Now, in the assignment submission, I added there a link about how to create an effective infographics. Okay, an infographic is not. It is from the word itself. It uses images to provide information. Okay, so Maggie is here. Yes, stay kindly message me if you're here so that I can add you. I can check your attendance. Okay, Maggie is present, and Jason Yu. Hi, Jason Yu. Good morning. So Jason Yu is here, and cheering. So Jason Yu. Okay, present. Juliet's present. Kev, Maggie is here. All right. Sharon. All right, present. All right. So again, to everyone, good morning. And okay, going back. So for the infographics, again, it includes images and it provides information. But for infographics, for it to be informative and to be effective in providing information, you don't really need to add a lot of text. So those texts that are only important for the information, okay, or for providing enough information about about that, okay, about the particular topic. And also an infographic, it needs to have a really good headline which is visible so that people or those who are reading, those who are looking at it will know what that infographic is all about. For example, for this um, task, you are asked to make an infographic about a sports supplement. So you might want to put a big headline about sports, on sports text written is sports supplement, or what sports supplement is that, or if you want to put a good headline for that. So um, you are free to do so, as long as the people looking at your infographic knows what that infographic is all about. All right. And also, don't forget to add in any submission that you are sending or you are submitting, make sure that you have your resources. Okay. So I also send a link. If you look at your submissions in Seesaw, I added a link how you can make a site references or sources correctly and properly. All right. So for now, we're using MLA format for that. Later on, there are other formats that you can use, but for science, we're going to do MLA format for these submissions. Okay. So let's move on. This week, we are discussing all about cellular respiration. Now, I asked you to read the book and study about what cellular respiration is. Okay, so cellular respiration, this is the last step in converting cellular or solar energy into a form of chemical energy that we can use for all our body functions. So, like what I mentioned to you a while ago, cellular respiration is a vital process for our cellular functions and for our bodily functions. So our body, our cells will not be able to function well if cellular respiration is not taking place. So right now, as I am talking here, as you're listening there, as you're seated, or maybe you're lying down on your bed right now listening to me, cellular respiration is taking place. So all our cells, all are undergoing cellular respiration. Okay, but there are two forms of respiration our that our body is going through. Okay, we have the aerobic respiration and the anaerobic respiration that we will be discussing further later on. Now, cellular respiration, it begins where the digestion leaves off. Okay, so we discussed about the digestive process. So as we eat, we um, we take in the food, enzymes, in the saliva. It will break down. Okay, it will break down the molecules in the food that we're eating. Again, what do we call that food that is mixed with saliva and enzymes inside our mouth? Gordon, based from our previous discussion, what do you call that ball of food?
Um, sorry, I don't know. Okay.
What do we call that ball of food? When we eat, it is mixed
What?
with enzymes and saliva. Starts
And
with letter B.
wait. And um,
What do we call it? Um, who can help Gordon? What do we call that food mixed with enzymes and saliva? Who can help Gordon remember and recall what this term is? All right, Mary. Yes, Mary? Yes, okay. So Mary said it's the bolus, okay? So inside our mouth, when we eat, we call it the bolus, and there are enzymes we call amylase that will break down the starches, and then digestion takes place. Now, once the glucose is absorbed into the bloodstream from the small intestine and it is being assimilated into the body cells. Then the process of chemically transforming glucose into the energy that our cells need begins and that our body needs, it begins there. So the first set of chemical reactions, we call it glycolysis or glycolysis, okay? Glycolysis, it occurs in the cytoplasm. As you can see here, okay, so this here, this is our cell, okay? I'm gonna stop sharing this for a while so that you can see. All right, so this here, as you can see, all right, okay, as you can see here, um, this is the cell, okay? So this is your cell membrane, the blue here. This is the boundary between the out the extracellular part, and this is your intracellular part. So this is your plasma membrane or your cell membrane. As the glucose goes in the cell, okay, this is when cellular respiration. This is when cellular respiration starts. And the first set of chemical reactions, we call it glycolysis or glycolysis. Okay, from the word glyco or sugar, and lysis, which is to digest or to dissolve, to lyse. Okay, so this again, it occurs in the cytoplasm. So once the glucose goes in, glycolysis will take place. Now, during glycolysis, each of the molecule of glucose gets broken down into two smaller molecules called pyruvate. Okay, here, so as the glucose separate, so the C6H12O6, it will separate into a smaller molecule. The smaller molecule, we call it the pyruvate. And how many pyruvates will be produced? Sharing? You can just message in the group chat. Sharing, how many pyruvates will be produced after glycolysis? Sharing? Kevin, how many pyruvates will be produced after glycolysis? Hello, can you hear me? Are you here, Kevin? How about? Okay, so I don't know. I didn't read. All right. So I just mentioned a while ago. Okay. So again, after glycolysis or glycolysis will produce two pyruvates or your pyruvic acid. So there will be, it will produce two of this pyruvate. Okay. So again, glycolysis, it occurs in the cytoplasm and each molecule, so one molecule of oxygen will produce two pyruvate molecules. So for every glucose going in, so one glucose that comes inside the cell will produce two pyruvate. Okay. And aside from the pyruvates, it will also produce two ATP or your adenosine triphosphate. So the adenosine triphosphate, this is the form of energy that our cells are able to use to perform all their functions. Now, this two ATP is just a small amount of ATP. It's a very small amount of ATP, but still it is enough to perform some of the cellular functions. So again, as the glucose comes in, glycolysis will take place. There will be two pyruvates produced for every glucose that comes in, for every glucose molecule that comes in. And also there will be two ATP that will be produced. Now, this two is only a part of the 34 to 36 ATPs that will be produced in that single reaction. Okay. So during glycolysis, oxygen is not used. Okay, O2 is not used. So this glycolysis here, we call it an anaerobic respiration. Okay. When you say anaerobic respiration, it is the respiration without the use of energy of oxygen, or without the presence of oxygen. Okay, so again, glycolysis, you have to remember this, that glycolysis is an anaerobic respiration. So it is part of the cellular respiration, but it does not require oxygen. Okay, as you can see, it only produces two oxygen, because, sorry, two ATP. So it does not really need a lot of energy for it to be produced. Okay. So N means there's no or without, and aero means oxygen. So without oxygen, just remember that. Glycolysis, anaerobic respiration, without, aerobic, air, oxygen. Okay. And in order to produce enough of this ATP, or the adenosine triphosphate, so the rest of the 32 to 34 ATP molecules, it needs to undergo aerobic respiration. We call it aerobic respiration because it requires oxygen. So after the pyruvate diffuses through the mitochondria, this is your mitochondria here. So again, the mitochondria here, it's it is the site of production of your cellular energy here. Okay, that's why we call the mitochondria the powerhouse of the cell, or it is the one that produces the cellular energy. Again, ATP is produced here in glycolysis, but only a small amount. Most of the ATP that our body needs for us to perform, for our cells to perform its bodily function, is happening here in your mitochondria. All right, so that's the difference. Again, from the glucose enter glycolysis, it will divide into two pyruvates, and then it will undergo this once it goes inside. So once the pyruvate diffuses, when you say diffuse, again, from high concentration to low concentration, right? So again, when you say diffusion, it's from a high concentration area to a low concentration area. Since there are less pyruvate inside, so pyruvate will diffuse inside the mitochondria, the site of the production of your cellular energy. Now, there will be several more, okay, of the chemical reactions and transformations that will occur here, but we're not going to deal further with this. Don't be afraid of the acetyl CoA, of the TCA cycle, Krebs cycle, electron transport chain. Okay, we're not going to deal with this. You're going to discuss this when you go to grade 9. It's just for us to know that, okay, so from the glucose that we eat, it will undergo glycolysis, producing two molecules of pyruvate and two adenosine triphosphates. Pyruvate will be going in. Okay, pyruvate will be diffusing, and together with the oxygen. So oxygen is present here. Now, teacher, what if oxygen is not present? This is the reason, okay, why when you are exercising or when you're doing an activity, okay, so your coach or your teacher, physical education teacher, will tell you, okay, don't forget to breathe. Okay, breathe in, okay, exhale, breathe in, exhale. Why? Because activity requires more oxygen. Why? Because there are a lot of cellular functions that we need to do. Okay, because if oxygen is not present, what will happen is it will undergo fermentation. Okay, here, if oxygen is absent, okay, so here, if oxygen is absent, fermentation will take place. Fermentation will build up lactate, or your lactic acid. This is the reason why you are experiencing muscle cramps Okay, teacher, oh my muscles are cramping when you're playing soccer or when you're playing volleyball, basketball. So you do strenuous activity. If you do not, sometimes you tend because you're nervous or you're very into it, you forget to or our body tends to not really um, rest or do inhalation and exhalation well. So what happens is there is a buildup of lactic acid or lactate, and this is the reason why you are having spasm. Your legs, okay, it's like hardened, it's like raw. Oh, teacher, I cannot move. That's because of this is the reason of that. So we have lack of oxygen. All right. So going back here, so if oxygen is present, there will be pyruvate, and it will be producing your ATP or your adenosine triphosphate. So um, the largest amount of this ATP is not produced until the final step. Okay, so it is the final step that requires more of the energy, or that requires more of the oxygen, and it is the final step that uh, produces, okay, that has the largest payoff of your ATP. So at the end of this cellular respiration of this process, it will produce 34 to 36 of your ATP. Okay, so again, without the oxygen, lactic acid will build up. Okay, fermentation will happen. So in addition to producing ATP, cellular respiration also produces carbon dioxide and water. This is why when we exhale, we release carbon dioxide. So here, this is this is the formula for your cellular respiration. Okay. All right. So here, this is the formula for your cellular respiration. Again, C6H12O6. This is your carbohydrates. Okay, that's the formula for your carbohydrates, C6H12O6, plus 6 molecules of oxygen will yield 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of water. Okay, so again, C6H12O6 plus 6O2. So simply it's carbohydrates, okay, or glucose plus oxygen. Remember, it requires oxygen. Again, it's aerobic respiration will yield carbon dioxide. So when we exhale, we produce carbon dioxide and water, okay? If you look at photosynthesis, what have you noticed with, or what can you notice with photosynthesis and cellular respiration? If you take a look at the formula of photosynthesis and cellular respiration, Maggie. Oh, hi, C1. Good morning. Okay, Maggie. What have you noticed with the formula of photosynthesis and cellular respiration here?
They are quite common in some ways.
They're quite common.
I mean,
Okay.
like, it's just like.
Okay. How about Kevin? Okay. What can you notice about or on the formula of photosynthesis and cellular respiration? Yes, okay. So Kevin said they are in the opposite side. So it's not hard to remember because photosynthesis is the opposite of cellular respiration. Okay. So if you take a look at it, so photosynthesis takes place in plants. It's carbon dioxide plus water, and then with the aid of sunlight, in the chlorophyll, it will produce carbohydrates and oxygen. In contrary, okay, oppositely, cellular respiration is carbohydrates plus oxygen will yield carbon dioxide and water molecules. Okay, so they are just the opposite. Okay, now uh, it is also important to realize that some people we do have or some have slower metabolic rate. When you say metabolic rate, so from the word metabolism, these are all the chemical reactions taking place in an organism. So it could be photosynthesis, it could be cellular respiration, it could be um, the aerobic or anaerobic respiration. So for for those who have slower metabolism or slow metabolic rate, they require less energy, okay, in the form of the calories that we take in, the food that we are eating. So if you have slower metabolic rate, okay, or if you do live a sedentary lifestyle, then you require less energy, then you require less calories, okay? That is the reason why if you have a sedentary lifestyle and then you keep increasing and increasing the calories that you're taking in, your body is not burning it, okay? Your body is not using it up, so it is being stored as fat, okay? But for those who have faster metabolic rate, those who are active and those who are doing strenuous activities, they require more energy because they need because they need this ATP for it to function for the cells to function well. Okay, for the muscles not to experience um, not to experience spasm or cramping. So here we need more calories for those with faster metabolism. But okay, it doesn't mean that if you're thin, you have slower metabolism or faster metabolism. Okay, so some thin persons they might have slower metabolism. Some fat persons might have faster metabolism. Okay, so that is what metabolism is all about. All right. Now that is all about cellular respiration. And that ends our topic for this morning. All right. Now, before I end this, class or this lesson, let's have a quick recap by answering this Kahoot. All right. So I want you again to get your devices and go to Kahoot. Game pin is 4912527. 4912527. Oh yes, Mary. Oh yes, it's fine. It's just you can just listen because a discussion as well. So you can just listen if you don't want to join Kahoot. You can just listen. But it will be a good practice. Also, some question might come out in your quiz this Friday. So, yep. It's okay. It's a practice, Mary. Like, it's just a practice. It's just don't be afraid of Kahoot. Don't be afraid of answering questions. This will be a practice. Yes, sure. Okay, so you can practice here. You can go to kahoot.it if you cannot open www.kahoot.it, and if you want not to use your name also. It's fine. So this is not graded. This is just a practice. Okay. There's also a discussion afterwards with this. Yes, yes, sure. Okay. So you can just join and then um, I have Gordon. This is just a recap, a review of what we discussed. All right. Hello, Maggie. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I was reading the other one. Okay, so for those who are here, Sharon, Jason, Joy, Juliet, Mary, C1, you can go to Kahoot and then we'll try to answer these questions. Help me answer these questions. There will be a discussion afterwards, so kindly stay tuned. You can go to kahoot.it. I'm still waiting for players. All right, so Joy is here.